Things you do every day that silently break your baby's bond with you. Your baby is building something right now. Something invisible. Something that takes the entire first year to construct. And something that once built, or broken, shapes how they will relate to other people for the rest of their life. Researchers call it the attachment bond. And here is what most parents don't know about it. It isn't built through the big moments. It isn't built through love alone. It is built and broken through the smallest, most ordinary, most completely unremarkable moments of an average day. Moments that most parents move through without a second thought, without any awareness that something important is happening, without knowing that their baby's developing brain is registering every single one. There are 7 specific things that parents do every day, not out of neglect, not out of cruelty, but out of habit, out of exhaustion, out of simply not knowing, that silently chip away at that bond. 7 things that feel harmless from the outside and leave a measurable mark on the inside. I want to be clear about something before we begin. This video is not about blame. The research I am going to share with you is not a verdict on your parenting. It is information that most parents never get access to. And information, once you have it, changes everything about how you move through your ordinary days. Stay with me through all 7. Because number 4 is the one that will surprise you most. It is something almost every parent does during one of the most frequent, most intimate moments of the day. And the research on what it does to the bond is something nobody is talking about. And by the time we reach number 7, you will understand something about how bonds are repaired that will change the way you think about every mistake you've ever made as a parent. Let's begin. 1. Picking up your phone when your baby reaches for your face. In 2018, a research team published a study in the journal Developmental Science that should have made headlines in every parenting magazine on Earth. It didn't. But the findings were extraordinary. The study, led by researcher Sarah Myruski, modified the classic still face experiment, one of the most replicated procedures in all of developmental psychology, to include something very specific and very modern: a mother's phone. In the original still face experiment, developed by Dr. Ed Tronick in the 1970s, researchers asked mothers to suddenly go emotionally blank and unresponsive during play with their baby. The results were immediate and striking. The baby would first try to reconnect, smiling harder, reaching, vocalizing. Then they would withdraw, turn away, and eventually show clear signs of distress and shutdown. Myruski's 2018 study recreated this effect, not with a blank face, but with a phone. When mothers picked up their phone during interaction with their baby, the effect on the baby's behavior and emotional functioning was nearly identical to the still face. The baby lost access to the parent's emotional presence just as completely as if the parent had gone blank. A subsequent study published in Infant Behavior and Development went further. It measured the physiological responses of infants during maternal smartphone use. Not just behavior, but heart rate and nervous system activation. Infants showed significantly more protest behavior, higher cardiac arousal, and reduced parasympathetic activity during their mother's phone use compared to baseline. Their bodies were in a stress response. Even when the parent was physically present, sitting right there, an arm's reach away. And here is the detail that landed hardest for me when I read this research. The babies who had mothers with higher daily phone use were not just distressed in those individual moments. They showed disrupted social emotional functioning across the entire experimental session, including in the moments when the phone was put away. The disruption to the bond didn't stop when the screen went dark. It lingered. What to do instead? Before you pick up your phone in your baby's presence, ask yourself one question. Would I go completely blank-faced for the next 3 minutes? Because from your baby's nervous system's perspective, that is exactly what is about to happen. 2. Responding inconsistently to the same signal. This one is harder to see because it doesn't look like one thing. It is a pattern. And patterns, by definition, are only visible when you step back far enough to see the whole picture. Here is what inconsistency looks like in everyday parenting. Your baby cries. On Monday, you come immediately. On Tuesday, you are tired and you wait several minutes. On Wednesday, you respond quickly but distracted, not really present. On Thursday, you come right away and are fully engaged. On Friday, you don't come for a while because you are on a call. None of those individual responses is a crisis. But the pattern across all 5 of them is something your baby's brain is recording constantly, automatically, and with extraordinary precision. Dr. Mary Ainsworth, whose landmark strange situation studies in the 1970s created the foundation of everything we know about attachment, identified caregiver sensitivity and consistency as the single most reliable predictor of whether a baby develops secure or insecure attachment. Not warmth alone, not love alone. Consistency, the degree to which the baby can predict that a signal will produce a response. When responsiveness is inconsistent, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes warm, sometimes distracted, the baby's nervous system cannot build a stable prediction. And without a stable prediction, the baby cannot settle, cannot regulate, cannot use the attachment figure as a secure base. Research from the Frontiers in Psychology journal confirms what Ainsworth first observed decades ago. Inconsistent caregiving is one of the most significant risk factors for insecure and anxious attachment patterns in infancy. Anxious attachment, which develops when a baby can never fully predict whether the caregiver will be available, looks like a baby who is hard to settle, clingy, and inconsolable. Not because something is wrong with the baby, because the baby's nervous system has learned that the caregiver is unpredictable, and so it must stay on high alert at all times. What to do instead? You do not need to respond perfectly every time. What you need is a pattern your baby can begin to predict. Warmth and responsiveness, consistently enough that your baby's nervous system can learn, when I signal, something comes. That prediction is the foundation of secure attachment. 3. Overriding their signals during play. There is a specific kind of moment that happens dozens of times a day with every baby, and almost every parent misses what is happening in it. Your baby looks away mid-play, or goes quiet when you were expecting a response, or pushes a toy away that you just enthusiastically offered. And your instinct, motivated entirely by love and the desire to engage, is to follow them, to redirect their attention back, to offer the toy again, to get louder, to get closer. That instinct in those specific moments is working against the bond you are trying to build. Harvard's Center on the Developing Child describes the serve and return dynamic as the primary mechanism through which early brain development and attachment are built. The baby serves, they reach, look, vocalize, signal. The caregiver returns, they respond to what the baby was communicating. The key word there is respond, not redirect, not override. Respond to what the baby actually did. When a baby looks away during play, they are not being difficult or disengaged. They are regulating their nervous system using gaze aversion, which researchers classify as a regulatory bid, to manage stimulation that has exceeded their capacity. When a baby pushes a toy away, they are communicating a preference with the only language they have. When a baby goes quiet, they may be processing. Every time you override that signal, every time you push past the look away, reinsert the rejected toy. Escalate the stimulation when the baby has clearly signaled enough, you break a serve and return cycle. You turn a moment that could have built the bond into a moment that teaches the baby, my signals don't change what happens. What I communicate does not matter. Research from 0 to 3 confirms that repeated missed or overridden cues are associated with the breakdown of emotional attunement, the moment-by-moment synchrony between parent and baby that secure attachment depends on. Attunement is not built by following your agenda. It is built by following theirs. What to do instead, in your next play session, try one thing. Follow. Watch what your baby looks at and go there with them. When they pull back, Pull back with them. When they signal enough, let enough be enough. That is not passivity. That is attunement. And attunement is the language the bond is built in. 4. Being physically present but emotionally absent during feeding. This is the one I mentioned in the opening. The one that surprises parents most, because it involves a moment they are already doing, already showing up for, already physically present for. Several times a day, every day. Feeding time, whether breast or bottle, is one of the most neurologically significant windows of the entire day for a baby's developing attachment system, not because of what goes into the baby's body, because of what happens between two people while it does. Dr. Alan Sroufe at the University of Minnesota, one of the world's leading attachment researchers, has been explicit about this in his research. He describes feeding as a primary context in which the quality of the caregiving interaction, not the method of feeding, determines its contribution to secure attachment. A mother who breastfeeds while scrolling her phone, he notes, may be providing less attachment security than a mother who bottle feeds with full eye contact, warm responsiveness, and emotional presence. The nutrition matters for the body. The interaction matters for the bond. Here is the neurological reason why. Feeding time involves sustained close physical contact, which activates the oxytocin system, the bonding hormone, in both parent and baby. The baby's eyes, at feeding distance, are calibrated to focus on exactly one thing: your face. They are running what researchers call social referencing, reading your expression to understand their emotional world. When your face is present, warm and engaged, the feeding becomes a dual nourishment, the body and the bond, simultaneously. When your face is turned toward a screen, your expression goes flat. The warm, dynamic, emotionally responsive face your baby's brain is designed to read becomes a still face. Not deliberately, not cruelly, but neurologically, what your baby experiences in those moments is the same phenomenon Dr. Tronick documented in a laboratory in 1975, parental emotional withdrawal. And the attachment research is consistent. Regular patterns of emotional absence during these high intimacy moments are associated with disrupted bonding and reduced attachment security. What to do instead? Make feeding your phone free zone, not because you are failing if you look away, but because feeding time is one of the few moments in a busy day when everything is already slowed down, when your baby is already close, when the biological conditions for bonding are already in place. You just have to be there for it. 5. Dismissing their distress as nothing. You have said it. Almost every parent has said it. You're fine. There's nothing to cry about. Stop fussing. It's not that bad. Said not with cruelty, but with love. With the genuine, caring intention of reassuring your baby that the world is safe. The research tells us something about what that reassurance actually communicates, and it is not what you intended. A baby under 12 months does not have the neurological capacity to evaluate the severity of their own distress. They cannot think, well, objectively, this situation is manageable, so perhaps I should calm down. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that would allow that kind of rational self-assessment, is not developed. What the baby has is a felt experience. Something is wrong, and they are sending you a signal about that felt experience. When you respond to that signal with dismissal, even gentle dismissal, the baby's nervous system registers a specific mismatch. Their internal experience says distress. The external response says nothing is wrong. Researchers who study emotional validation in early childhood describe this mismatch as one of the earliest forms of emotional invalidation, and the research on its cumulative effect is concerning. 0 to 3, in their research on early emotional development, notes that a breakdown in the emotional bond occurs specifically when a caregiver consistently dismisses a baby's emotional signals. Not from one missed moment. From the pattern. From the repeated message, what you feel does not match what is real. Over time, that message teaches the baby to distrust their own experience, and to distrust the person who keeps contradicting it. The attachment bond is built on felt security, the body-level knowledge that this person sees me when I am in distress, receives what I am communicating, and responds to it. Dismissal, however loving, teaches the baby the opposite. I signal, and what comes back is a denial of the signal. That is not the message that builds a bond. What to do instead? You do not need to fix every cry. You need to acknowledge it. I hear you. That was a lot. I'm here. Those 3 words are not agreement that the world is ending. They are confirmation that the signal was received. And the bond is built on that confirmation, not on the reassurance. 6. Skipping the repair after a rupture. Here is something that the research says clearly, that most parenting conversations never say clearly enough. You will rupture the bond. Every parent does. Every day. It is not possible to be consistently responsive, emotionally present, and attuned to your baby across every single moment of every single day. Ruptures are not a sign that something is wrong with your parenting. They are a built-in feature of real human relationships. What breaks the bond is not the rupture. It is the missing repair. The research on rupture and repair in attachment is one of the most important and least discussed areas of early childhood science. Dr. Ed Tronick, whose still-face research we discussed earlier, has written extensively on this. He describes the process of misattunement and repair. The moment when a parent misses a cue, gets it wrong, is absent or overwhelmed, and then comes back, reconnects, repairs, as one of the most developmentally significant sequences in the entire first year of life. Here is why. When a rupture is followed by repair, the baby learns something that cannot be learned any other way, that disconnection is not permanent, that the caregiver comes back, that relationships survive difficulty, that distress resolves, that trust is resilient. When rupture is consistently not followed by repair, when the parent snaps and doesn't come back to it, withdraws and stays withdrawn, misses the cue and moves on without reconnection, the baby's nervous system has no way to complete the cycle. The distress stays open. And over hundreds of these incomplete cycles, a pattern forms in the baby's implicit memory. Connection is fragile. It breaks and doesn't come back. People leave and don't return. Help Guide, summarizing decades of attachment research, puts it plainly, what makes attachment secure is not the absence of disconnection, but the willingness to notice it and attempt repair. The repair, not the perfection, is what holds the bond together. What to do after a difficult moment, after you snapped, after you were absent, after you missed what your baby needed? Come back to it. Come back to them. A moment of reconnection after a rupture does not erase the rupture. It does something better. It teaches your baby that the bond is stronger than the break. That is a lesson that takes decades to fully understand and a lifetime to be grateful for. 7. Keeping the environment chaotic and unpredictable. This last one is the most environmental, the most structural, and the one that parents have the least control over, which is exactly why it deserves to be named clearly, without shame, and with the understanding that even small changes to predictability make measurable differences. A baby's developing brain is, above all else, a prediction machine. From the very first weeks of life, the brain is running a continuous background process, identifying patterns, building predictions, testing them against reality, and updating its model of the world based on whether those predictions come true. Predictability, the reliable repetition of sequences the baby can begin to anticipate, is not merely comforting for an infant. It is neurologically essential. Research from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, tracking 468 families from 3 months onward, found that babies with consistent daily routines showed significantly better emotional regulation, longer sleep, and lower cortisol levels than babies in more chaotic environments. The effect was measurable at 18 months and 2 years, outcomes shaped by the predictability or unpredictability of those early months. Here is the mechanism. Predictability tells a baby's nervous system, I know what comes next. And knowing what comes next is, for a developing infant, the closest available thing to safety. When the environment is consistently unpredictable, loud and then suddenly quiet, warm and then suddenly cold, responsive and then suddenly chaotic, the baby's stress system stays chronically activated, not in a dramatic, visible way, in a quiet, background, always on alert way. And a stress system that is chronically activated has less capacity for everything else. Less capacity for social engagement, less capacity for the serve and return interactions that build the bond, less capacity for the emotional attunement that secure attachment depends on. Chaos doesn't just affect comfort, it taxes the very biological systems through which bonding happens. Research published in the Annals of Nutrition and Metabolism describes what a predictable routine does in a baby's brain. It creates what researchers call predictability cues, sequences of experience that tell the nervous system what is coming next. Those cues don't just reduce stress. They actively free up the neural resources that the baby uses to connect with you. What to do? You do not need a rigid schedule. You need enough consistency that your baby can begin to anticipate the shape of their day. A predictable morning. A consistent wind down before sleep. The same sequence, in the same warmth. Enough times that your baby's nervous system can begin to recognize it. That recognition, I know what this is, I know what comes next, is a form of safety. And safety is the ground the bond grows in. 7 things. The phone in your hand. The inconsistent response. The overridden signal. The absent face at feeding time. The dismissed distress. The missed repair. The unpredictable environment. And I want you to notice something about that list. None of those things are cruelty. None of them are neglect. None of them are what a bad parent does. They are what a tired, distracted, overwhelmed, doing their best human being does. They are what almost every parent on earth does, in some combination, every single day. The research does not say that any one of these moments breaks the bond permanently. It says that the pattern matters, the accumulation matters, and the repair always, always matters most. Dr. Tronick spent decades studying what he called the mismatch and repair cycle, and what he found was this: it is not the perfect caregiver who produces secure attachment. It is the good enough caregiver, the one who misses and notices, who ruptures and comes back, who is sometimes absent and then fully present again. The repair is not a backup option. It is the mechanism. It is how the bond gets stronger, not just restored. Your baby is not keeping a record of your failures. They are keeping a record of your returns, of the times you came back, of the face that reappeared, of the voice that came after the silence, of the warmth that followed the cold. That record, built from hundreds of ordinary returns across the first year of life, is the bond, not the perfection. The return. If this video gave you something, one moment you'll catch differently tomorrow, one signal you'll respond to instead of dismissing, one repair you'll make that you might have let go, then share it. Because this is the kind of knowledge that changes ordinary days. And ordinary days are all the bond is ever built from. I'll see you in the next one.